Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another special edition of Carry On Friends. I'm excited to be launching a new series with a couple that I really have gotten to know in the last couple months and really enjoy. And this is called Caribbean Adjacent. And I wanted to do the series to incorporate those who are part of the family through marriage and friendship. And this was inspired by my uncle and his wife of 30 years, who she was African American, born in Memphis, Tennessee. And I recognize that there's so many more of these stories out there. And I've come to know Randy from his last interview. If you haven't checked that out, you should go and check it out. And I wanted to talk to him and his wonderful wife, Shauna. So, welcome to Caribbean Adjacent, Shauna and Randy. How are you both?
We're doing well. Thank you so much for having us, Carrie Ann. It's a pleasure to be here.
Doing great. Thank you so much. We're excited for today.
All right. So, I told the audience a little bit about who you are, but give them a quick intro about both of you and your brands, and then we'll get into our questions.
Awesome. So I'm Randy Pelaya, and this is my wife, Shauna Pelaya. We're the founders of West Indies Pepper Sauce. So West Indies Pepper Sauce, we are a brand that is focused on preserving food culture from the Caribbean and the West Indies. So when grandma and mom passes on, food culture does not have to die. We understand how important that is about preserving culture because Shauna and myself, we lived in Vietnam and South Korea for 5 years, been to 60 countries, 6 continents. We've seen with our own eyes how cultures around the world are losing part of their identity. And for us, with our mission on keeping our culture alive for future generations, for everyone to enjoy.
Wonderful. All right. So, let's get into it. All right. How did you two first meet?
Okay, so I can start. I'm sure Randy's gonna, fill in the pieces that I miss. Like Randy said, we love to travel. We met while we were traveling. We met at the JFK Airport in New York. I was coming back from a trip with some girlfriends right after college. We backpacked Europe for about 2 months. I was coming back, going back to Arkansas, where I'm from. Had slept at the airport, so it was pretty exhausted. Coming over a cold. And then Randy was coming. He was going to his brother's wedding in St. Thomas and was just coming off of probably partying from Halloween night. So still on the game, right? And then, yeah, so we met in the security line, actually, JFK, American Airlines. And yeah, I was looking at my pictures for my trip, and he just struck up a conversation with me that he had went to London for a study abroad. Yeah, and then we exchanged, information. He would say within, like, 2 minutes, but it was a bit of a longer, line. I had time to take out my camera. So yeah, did I miss anything there?
No, I think that's accurate. This was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and JFK is busy all day, every day, and it was a 5 a.m. flight, and I was with my grandparents and my cousin, and we were on our way to catch a flight from New York to Miami because my older brother was getting married in St. Thomas. And yeah, as Shauna mentioned, I struck up a conversation, and I'm from New York, so that was real quick. That was like 3 minutes. But no, we just had a conversation, and it was great, and we exchanged phone numbers, and it blossomed.
What I find fitting in all of this is that you both met at the airport and a lot of your life has been traveling. And I think it's just so apropos and a nice meet cute that you met at JFK of all places, one of the, most international airports. So that's cute. All right. So Shauna, most of this is going to be on you. So my next question is, describe a moment where you felt out of place but embraced it with humor. Before we go there, if you don't remember where Randy is from, Caribbean culture, Randy, tell the people them which country you represent.
Yeah, so my mom and dad is from Guyana. I was born in Richmond Hill, Queens, New York, so representing, Guyanese culture. But at our brand, West Indies Pepper Sauce, we represent everybody across the board.
All right. So, Shauna, back to you. Tell me a moment where you felt out of place but embraced it with humor.
Yes. So, we've been married for 12 years. I've been, with Randy for a long time. Even before we got married, we were together for like 7 or 8 years before that. So I've been part of the family for a long time and very honored to be part of, his family, Guyanese culture, the Caribbean culture. I think, for me, I grew up in Arkansas, so in not a very diverse place. And you'd be surprised there are, several Asian Americans there that I'm Vietnamese American. So there's actually a Vietnamese population who came there from, being refugees. There's a small Lao population, Marshallese there. So you'd be surprised. There's some diversity and Hispanics too, but not really anyone from the Caribbean. So when I met Randy, like I said, at the airport, he told me, where he's from, New York. And he said, "Oh, but my family's from Guyana." Like, Randy's a great talker. He can tell you a lot within like a couple minutes. So he told me that his family's from Guyana, and I was like, "Oh!" And then he probably saw in my face that I didn't know where that was. So he kind of explained it to me, like he's probably used to doing. He did it so graciously. But yeah, I guess being Vietnamese American, and then being with his family, who's from Guyana. I think there's a lot of Chinese Guyanese who are in Guyana, right? And so I think one thing was with his family, they would say they would kind of associate anybody who's Asian to be Chinese, right? So they'd be like, "Oh, the Chinese girl." So I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah." And then I would just use it as, a teaching moment. So just to let them know, yes, um, the originations come from China, but my family's from Vietnam, and all that. So I think it was a teaching moment for them, but also for me. Like that's just how they describe Asian people. So they're very accepting, and I'm very proud and honored to be part of the family. So
That is a good story, but I'm glad you used that as a teaching moment. All right, next thing I wanted to ask you. Have you ever gone to a Caribbean Guyanese fete? And what was that like for you when you first experienced it?
yeah, the first one I can remember was when we were in New York for Labor Day. This was before kids, so um, the New York Labor Day, yeah,
West Indian Day Parade in Brooklyn,
yeah,
yeah.
Indian Day Parade was, like, a huge thing, so we went to explore and went to that parade, and I thought it was really cool with, like, all the different, the floats or the trucks that came by with all the flags that represented each country. Definitely the costumes were very elaborate, right? So I felt like, underdressed, but not underdressed, right? So so it's, quite elaborate, how they have everything set up. I thought it was great. I think it's so cool that everybody's very proud of where they are from. We got one of those a Guyanese flag and wore it, on our bags and my hair and things like that too. So I thought it was awesome. And most recently, we actually went to a fete in Miami. So the Soca, the food, wine, and fete that Vanessa James puts on in Miami. That it was a great event. That's where we one of the first events that where we had whips, West Indies pepper sauce. So we met, a lot of great people there, a lot of chefs. They had DJs there and everything. So I think the fetes and the carnivals, they're a great part of the Caribbean culture.
All right, I'm taking you off the hot seat for a little bit. Randy, um, were you ever concerned or worried when you're like, okay, I'm gonna take Shauna to this party. I just hope. Were you ever worried or concerned about maybe what your friends or family would say, or whether, something would have been too much for her to manage initially? Tell me about that.
That's a great question. I never really thought about that, but the long answer and the short answer is no. I've never concerned or worried. So, I mean, whether you're Guyanese, Jamaican, Trini, Bayesian, we're proud of our culture, right? And we're not going to hide it. We're not going to sugarcoat it. So, when I first met Shauna and we started dating, I didn't hide anything. It was just, this is our culture. I remember she came to New York and I was at work and my cousin was going to pick her up and we were in Queens, Richmond Hill. And anybody knows from Queens, they're going to know the guy in a bake shop. So I remember she was on the phone with my cousin. She was like, "Hey, I'm in front of a guy in a bake shop." And she just got thrown right into it. So the long answer is no. We come from proud cultures as well as her culture is very proud. Never for a moment.
I love the story so far, by the way. All right, all right, all right. So keeping on the theme of fete, right? What's the one song that you can't help but dance to, even if you're not sure you're doing the dance move right? Shauna.
This is a good question. I had to get Randy's help on it because I was like, "What's that song that goes like, wine with me, wine with me?" Of course, I'm a bad singer. And so he had to help me
It was
remember what it is.
that
So
was
it's Mr.
Mr.
Vegas.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Hot
So
one.
it's always the one I remember. I've been okay. Yeah, I'm trying to dance to it, but
No, that's a brave song to dance to, but I love it. I love that you catch the vibe and you wanted to dance. I love it. Shauna, go on with your bad self. Um, all right, all right. So, how does the concept of family in the Caribbean culture compared to what you are used to in your culture?
that's a great question too. So family. I mean, I grew up in a family of I have 2 sisters and a brother. My mom, she was actually adopted from Vietnam, so we didn't grow up, like, in the Vietnamese culture as much. My parents split up when I was, like, 10 or 11, so he was a refugee from Vietnam, she was an adopted, child from Vietnam when she was, like, 3 or 4. So we didn't really grow up, like, speaking the language. We had some of the foods, we went to, some of the traditional things that they had in the Vietnamese culture, but not a lot. I had cousins who are, Vietnamese-American cousins too. So yeah, we're very close. And as we grow older, of course, we get closer, and even with my cousins too. So we definitely value our time together. We value each other's opinions, and I think it's very similar in the Caribbean culture and the Guyanese culture. I think they're very close, they're very respectful people. Randy and his brothers are very respectable. They're hard workers. I think, from coming from, first generation American background, we're all sort of like really hard workers. Um, and I think, family is, we do as much as we can for our family. So I think that's, very similar in both of our families. And I think that's one of the reasons, all the values we have together, that's one of the reasons why we're together. So we definitely value each other's time, opinions, and everything. So,
Wonderful. All right. So, if you had to sum up what being Caribbean adjacent means in one sentence, what would that be?
Caribbean adjacent in one sentence to me means that you're immersed together, and sort of what I was talking about the family. Like I've been immersed into Randy's family. Um, I'm doing different things that I wasn't used to, growing up with, like, even the Hindu culture and the religion. So, I think it's just really being immersed together, and sharing the values together.
That's a great answer, Shauna. What would a Caribbean adjacent survival kit include based on your experience?
I was thinking,
Um, oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, definitely, um, from a food perspective, let's start there. I grew up, not eating a lot of spicy food. Like I said, I grew up, Vietnamese American, but my mom, she learned some Vietnamese dishes, but not a lot, and mostly like no spice, right? So when I met Randy, a lot of the food is definitely spicy. Yes, and it's all like the whole peppers, right? I remember there was a time when he made some fried rice, and he put the whole like weird pepper in there. And when I eat, I just like eat. I didn't really pay attention to what was in the food. I was like, this tastes good. I had a whole bite of the weird pepper, the whole thing in my mouth. I had to drink, I think, a couple glasses of milk. so I'd say, have some expectations of, spicy level, levels. It's not only the spice, but it's pepper sauce. So like having, West Indies pepper sauce, where like um I've I'm accustomed to the heat now, which is great and I love it. So yeah, making sure you can eat up, to the spicy foods is one of
You
them.
that's a really good point because when you were talking about, like, he put the whole pepper and I'm like, "All right, what's wrong with that?" in my head, but I didn't realize that, oh, wait, that's not a normal thing really for everyone else. So this when it's part of your culture, you don't even think of, like, maybe other people don't quite do that. So thank you for bringing that awareness to me because I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to put the whole pepper in it.
It up, right?
Mm-mm. We want it boss in the pot.
Nice.
Is that the term you use, Randy? It has to bust in the pot or something.
100%, yes. You need a flavor, right?
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Um, so in your survival kit is like, listen, make sure your belly's strong or your tongue, whatever it is for the spice, because it is coming. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. Wonderful. Um, and then last question, what advice would you give to someone dating or becoming close friends with someone from the Caribbean?
That's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of my friends and family who are associated with people in the Caribbean, with Randy's family, more people that we meet, meet at the markets selling West Indies pepper sauce. They always say, "Oh yeah, I have a friend who's Guyanese, or my boss is Guyanese. I'm going to get this for my friend." And they always have great things to say about the people of the Caribbean of Guyana too. So, I mean, not a lot. I mean, because everybody's so accepting, everybody's so kind, and they really try to, you know, tell you about their culture or, um, I don't know, show you what their culture is, even if,
Yeah,
you're not really asking for it, but they're gonna share it with you. I
absolutely.
think that's a really great aspect of, people from the Caribbean is, um, that it's just who they are, so it's who they are, and then they share their, culture, their values with you, and everybody just feels so accepting, so
Yeah. And I would probably add to that, Carrie Ann, being Jamaican, Guyanese, it doesn't matter where you're from in the Caribbean or West Indies. There's 44 million souls on this beautiful earth that represent the Caribbean and the West Indies. 44 million souls. So we have more similarities than differences. And, I think to, Shauna's point is anytime we meet people at the market or we're selling our pepper sauce, we always hearing stories. And it's great that we can connect with all of our people because when we tell the story about what we're doing at West Indies pepper sauce and preserving culture, because if we don't do it, others will come in and try to dilute it. So they love what we're talking about because everybody's always trying to tell a story and we're a prideful group. And I think we're a very unique group, right? So, you know, that's what I would say. We're very unique and proud of where we're from, and we got to tell that story.
Yeah, and even when we are communicating interculturally, like a Guyanese will tell me, "Oh, in Guyana we do this, that." You're educating people in your conversation, so we don't make assumptions that a Jamaican knows what's going on in, Guyana or vice versa. So even in our conversation, we do find ourselves explaining certain things part of our culture, and I think it's just our natural positioning to be telling people what's going on in our culture. So I think that's great. That you've been having such a wonderful experience part of the family through marriage. And Randy, my last question is for you. Um, when you look back at this life and experience that you've had with Shauna, um, and what you both are building with West Indies pepper sauce, what is what is the legacy with your joint cultures that you are looking to impart to your children because they are now representative of both cultures?
I love that you asked that question, Carrie Ann. Like, the legacy that we're looking to leave behind. Our kids, we got a Guyanese Vietnamese remix, right? Everybody already knows me as Reggae Randy. right? So the legacy that we're trying to leave for our young kiddos is be proud of where you're from, right? Understand where you're coming from and where you're going, right? So our kids are seeing us in the kitchen, right? If I'm making curry or Shauna's making pho, we do a remix. We make some Guyanese Vietnamese food, right? But it's not only Guyanese Vietnamese food. We're making all kinds of food from the Caribbean and the West Indies, right? And we're making that twist to it. So we just want to keep that strong for the future generations, for everyone, because culture is important to continue to have.
Thank you both for joining me for this inaugural episode of Caribbean Adjacent. I just really, really enjoy both of you and wish you enough more years, plenty, plenty, plenty more years together, and all the success with West Indies Pepper Sauce. I'll make sure I put where people could connect with both of you in the description and all the good things. Just go to @Shop Whips all over the place. It's the same thing. I fully endorse the yellow sauce. That's the one me like. Fully endorse it. You can at me if you disagree. I don't care. It's the yellow sauce for me. All right. So thank you again both for joining. And as I love to say, walk good.
Blessings. Take care.
Thank you so
Peace.
much.